I was the woman he thought he erased. The name on a loan, the ghost in bankruptcy papers, the one he left behind with a fake smile and $600,000 in debt. For a decade, I became no one, vanished from every photo, every Google search, every memory he crafted. But I was there, behind every algorithm, every contract he didn't read, every smile he didn't question. So when he shook my hand in that boardroom, sealing a multi-million-dollar deal, he had no idea he'd just sold his company to the wife he once ruined. And I didn't blink when I said, "Pleasure doing business with you." I used to believe in sacrifice. That love meant choosing someone else's dream over your own and building their world like it was your own. That's why, at 26, I walked away from a growing career in data analytics to become Jack Whitmore's full-time wife. Jack had charm, the kind that wasn't loud but magnetic. He wasn't just building a company, he was building an empire in educational tech. And I believed in him the way some people believe in religion. Absolute, blind, devoted. He told me I was the heart of his piece, that he could conquer the market because he knew I was holding things together at home. His words were always gentle, never sharp, but like sugar over poison, they melted sweet and killed slow. We lived in a minimalist condo with floor-to-ceiling glass, polished wood, and quiet hallways. Everything looked like a dream, except I never saw the deed. He handed me a credit card with a $2,000 limit and said, "Anything you want, just not everything you want." I smiled and nodded. That was the compromise, right? A man leads, a woman supports. Jack's mother used to laugh and say, "My son picked you because you know how to keep your mouth shut, smart girl." She said it like a compliment. I swallowed it like a warning. I never signed anything important. He said paperwork was complicated, that I should just focus on the home. He handled the business, the meetings, the contracts. I decorated our home, made lunch for him in glass containers labeled with love notes. I organized dinners where he never showed up, and every time I asked about money, he kissed my forehead and said, "Trust me." So I did. Until the morning, I found an envelope on the marble countertop. It wasn't a love note. It was a pre-filled divorce petition. No warning, no conversation, just a neatly packed betrayal, couriered like a business memo. Jack was gone. His closet was empty, his number disconnected. No keys, no trace, just a signature line waiting for mine. The bank called 2 days later. The mortgage, under my name, was 4 months behind. Then the credit collectors came, then the IRS. According to every document, I wasn't just Jack's wife. I was the financial backbone of his startup, the sole debtor on loans I never signed, the co-founder of a company I never worked at. There was a stack of paperwork, loans, debt transfers, lines of credit, all bearing my name. And then came the lawyer. He sat across from me with a briefcase full of legalese and said, "You were granted internal power of attorney through marital authorization. It's all valid." I stared at him like he was speaking another language, but the truth was simpler than the jargon. Jack had used me, my name, my silence, my trust. I tracked down his old CTO, someone I'd made lemon tea for during late-night brainstorms in our living room. He whispered, "Jack sold the original platform, rebranded everything under a shell company owned by a new partner. I don't know her name, but she's younger, private school type." I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was ridiculous. I had become a cautionary tale, a woman who gave everything and got billed for it. When I told my mother, she asked why I didn't fight back, didn't go public, didn't burn everything down. I told her the truth. I was still in shock. I was still in the phase where betrayal feels like your fault. Like maybe if you were smarter, louder, less trusting, none of this would have happened. I moved into her basement. No bedroom windows, just a mattress on the floor and a pile of unopened bills. People think rock bottom is dramatic, but it's quiet. It's subtle. It's shame dressed in silence. And yet, in that silence, something shifted. I didn't scream. I didn't post. I didn't beg. I just disappeared. Because sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. No one recognized me when I walked into the diner on 7th and Beach. That was the plan. I'd cut my hair into a blunt bob, dyed it dark, swapped heels for sneakers, pencil skirts for hoodies. My name tag read Anna. It wasn't legally changed, just enough to blend in, enough to not be her anymore, not the girl who got played, not the name on every debt collector's list. By day, I poured coffee and cleared plates. By night, I opened YouTube tutorials, coding forums, and GitHub repositories. I wasn't trying to reinvent myself. I was trying to remember who I was before I became someone else's pawn. I still had my old MacBook wiped clean, blank, like me. But piece by piece, I rebuilt it. I started with a simple idea, an AI that could track personal finances in real time, flag suspicious patterns, and teach risk literacy through gamified prompts. It wasn't genius, it was survival, disguised as innovation. At first, it was just for me. A way to stop feeling like money was a monster hiding in unopened envelopes. But then I realized I wasn't the only one. So many women online were telling the same story. I signed a lease I didn't understand. My partner used my credit. He said it was just a formality. So I made a Reddit account, username a debt ghost. I posted my story, not the whole thing, just enough to sound familiar, enough to let others know someone out there understood. I got 30 responses in a day, then 200. Then I posted a video on TikTok using a voice filter, hiding my face in shadows. I was left with $600K in debt by a man who kissed my forehead every morning. Now I build tools to make sure that never happens to anyone else. The video hit 100,000 views overnight. I called the prototype Circe at first, after the sorceress who turned men into pigs. But it felt too obvious, too angry. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here for protection, for power. I renamed it Athena Protocol. In 3 months, we had 20,000 users, women from everywhere, divorcees, college grads, single moms, women with 5 bank accounts or none. We didn't ask for identities, just stories. We gave them tools. We gave them a shield. Then, TechCrunch called. Not for an interview, just a mention in an article. An anonymous fintech tool built by women, for women gaining traction in silence. That line hit me like lightning. I'd been hiding for so long, I forgot what recognition felt like when it didn't burn. Then came the email. It was simple, clean. No emojis, no fluff. I once invested in your ex-husband. I'd like to invest in the woman he left behind. Name your terms. The sender used only initials, but I knew. There was a phrase only one woman ever used with that kind of bite. Left behind. She said it at my wedding. Whispered it in my ear like a curse. Don't fall behind, dear. Jack doesn't like slow women. It was her, Jack's mother. I reread the email 10 times before I replied. Why me? Her answer came fast. Because you did what I thought you couldn't. You didn't cry. You didn't beg. You built. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream, but I didn't do either. I just wrote back, you'll invest under the Athena name only. No ownership, no interference. You're a silent partner, like you always were. She agreed. The wire transfer landed 3 days later, $250,000. I stared at the number in my account and all I could think was, it's not about the money. It's about how it feels to take something from someone who once stripped you bare. I didn't gloat. I didn't call her. I didn't even save her number. But when I transferred the funds into our development budget, I whispered one sentence out loud, just for me. I'll take your money the same way you took my dignity, without asking. That night, we launched Athena 2.0. Improved UI, stronger encryption, new features for identifying manipulative financial behaviors. We didn't market it with a splash. We let the whispers do the work. By morning, we were trending on Product Hunt. By evening, we were invited to demo at Women in Tech Conf. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a shadow. I felt like a storm. Neomind was everywhere, on podcasts, tech panels, magazine covers. It was sleek, reborn, branded as the future of educational analytics powered by AI. But I recognized its DNA like a scar. It was the same core engine Jack and I once discussed over midnight takeout on our apartment floor. The algorithms weren't new. He'd just rewritten the code, repackaged it, and painted over the theft. They called it innovation. I called it familiar. I didn't flinch when I saw the IPO announcement. I opened a bottle of mineral water, refreshed my inbox, and waited for the fund manager's confirmation. By end of day, it came through. Athena Capital, via an anonymous venture vehicle, now owned 11% of Neomind's pre-IPO shares. It wasn't enough to control, not yet, but it was enough to enter the room. The invitation to the private shareholder roundtable arrived 2 days later. I RSVP'd under the name Savannah Lee, the alias I'd built over years of silent victories. Savannah had a clean record, a polished accent, a LinkedIn trail curated with precision. She was real enough to pass any audit and ghostly enough to vanish when needed. The conference room was chilled, all steel and glass, the kind Jack used to dream about. I took the seat across from him. He was older now, slightly heavier, but carried the same smirk I once mistook for charm. He didn't recognize me, not even a flicker. "Ms. Lee," he said, extending a hand. "Pleasure." I shook it. Firm. Cold. "Congratulations," I said. "Neomind's growth is familiar." He laughed, not catching the word. We talked metrics, projections, data privacy protocols. He was smooth, as always, but power makes men lazy, and arrogance makes them vulnerable. When he leaned back, eyes narrowing, I saw the salesman twitch return. "You've built quite a platform yourself," he said, referencing Athena. "We followed it for a while." "Then you know," I replied. "I built it after losing everything to a man who thought I wouldn't notice what he took." There was a beat of silence, half curiosity, half discomfort. He tilted his head. "That so?" I smiled. "But that's the past. I don't live there anymore." He didn't ask for more. He never liked chasing stories he didn't write. Over the next 2 weeks, he welcomed Savannah Lee into his inner circle. I received confidential reports, invitations to strategy calls, and access to investor slide decks. He mistook proximity for loyalty. I didn't say much. I didn't have to. Jack started bragging again about aggressive valuation tactics, gray area data sharing, cross-collateralized credit deals hidden in foreign entities, all technically legal, all morally rotten. So I started leaking. Not everything, just enough. A quiet email to a freelance journalist, a Dropbox link to an internal memo, a whistleblower tip under a burner account. I picked my battles, leaking minor infractions first, letting the media chew slowly before dropping the meat. By the time The Guardian published a piece titled, "Is Neomind Too Smart to Fail?" Neomind's board was rattled. Investors hesitated. One pulled out, then another. Jack scrambled to stabilize valuation numbers before the IPO window closed. He called Savannah to a crisis dinner. He brought wine. I brought silence. "I don't know who's doing this," he said, "but someone's gunning for me. You've been loyal. I trust you." I met his eyes. "You shouldn't." He laughed like it was a flirt. God, he really didn't see me. I didn't need to destroy him. I only needed to let his own words do it. The final article came from Bloomberg, Neomind's financial house of cards, inside leaked contracts and risky debt chains. That was the death blow. The IPO halted. The board forced a restructure. Jack was given a choice: sell 49% of his stake to restore investor confidence or step down entirely. He sold. The buyer? Athena Capital. I signed the paperwork that made Athena the largest stakeholder in Neomind. I used the same pen Jack once refused to hand me when I asked to co-sign our apartment lease. He looked stunned when the deal closed. Still, he didn't know. He stood across the room, watching me shake hands with the board, still wondering why Savannah Lee seemed so familiar, and I just smiled, wondering how long it would take for recognition to ruin him. The first time I stepped into Neomind's lobby years ago, I was holding Jack's dry cleaning and a lunch I'd made with love. Now I stepped in, wearing a tailored navy suit, flanked by 2 legal advisors and a project lead from Athena. The walls hadn't changed, still chrome, glass, the usual tech hub minimalism, but the power had. I signed in at the front desk under my real name, Sarah Whitmore. The receptionist paused, confused by the name on the security list, but she said nothing. She tapped the screen, printed a guest badge, and handed it to me with both hands. "Welcome to Neomind," she said. "Thank you," I replied. "It's good to be home." The boardroom was half full when I arrived. Jack was standing at the whiteboard pitching a revised launch timeline. His sleeves were rolled up, voice confident, back turned. He didn't notice me until the door closed behind me and everyone stood. I took the empty chair at the head of the table and placed a slim black folder in front of me. Jack turned and froze. His eyes flicked to the others, to the folder, then to me, but he didn't say anything. I waited. "Shall we begin?" I said, voice steady. I opened the folder and slid a document across the table. It read, System Integration and Consolidation Directive, Athena V3.0 Merge Timeline, approved by Sarah Whitmore, lead executive stakeholder. Jack's face drained. He didn't sit. He didn't blink. His eyes locked on the signature, then lifted to mine. "Who the hell are you?" he asked. I leaned back, calm, controlled. "I'm the answer you never thought you'd get," I said. The silence was electric. Chairs creaked. A few board members shifted uncomfortably. I watched him scan the room for support, but no one moved. The balance had shifted, and he was standing on the wrong side of it. When the meeting ended, he didn't follow me out. The next morning, headlines rolled in. Athena acquires majority stake in Neomind. Former tech wife turns silent stakeholder into powerhouse CEO. Who is Sarah Whitmore? I didn't give interviews. Instead, I sat backstage at the joint press conference, reading from a cue card, though I'd memorized every word. The audience was full. Investors, press, former colleagues who had long written me off. In the front row, I had reserved one seat with a gold placard, Eleanor Whitmore. My former mother-in-law stepped in 10 minutes late, dressed in pearls and cream, like nothing had ever touched her. She looked surprised when the usher directed her to the first row, center. She sat like royalty, back straight, legs crossed, not a flicker of apology on her face. I began the speech not by thanking my team, but by stating a fact. Power is not something you inherit. It's something you take back piece by piece in silence. There were no slogans, no anger, just clarity. When the Q&A began, a reporter asked the inevitable, "Is this a story of revenge?" I smiled, not politely, but with weight. "No," I said, "this is not revenge. This is redistribution." A pause. Clicks of camera shutters. The entire room leaned in. I didn't take anything that wasn't already mine. I just waited until it became undeniable. That line made the cover of Time magazine next month. Redefining soft revenge, the rise of Sarah Whitmore. But in the moment, under the lights, surrounded by applause, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pride, just a strange emptiness, like I'd crossed a finish line and realized no one was there to greet me. After the conference, I sat alone in the green room. The makeup team had already left. My hair was perfect. My smile rehearsed. But the silence pressed harder than ever. My assistant entered with a folder and a smile. "You did it," she said. I nodded. She left. I stared at the empty room, the reflection of myself in the mirror, and whispered something I hadn't said in years. I miss who I used to be. But that woman no longer existed. She died the day she signed a lease she didn't understand and trusted a man who smiled while he lied. And this woman, this version, had no time to grieve her. She had empires to run. The penthouse had every symbol of success: open floor plan, museum-grade art, wine fridge that cost more than my first car. And yet it echoed. Not from emptiness, but from absence. The kind you can't furnish away. My calendar was booked 3 months out. Morning calls with venture partners in Singapore. Midday fireside chats on resilience. Evenings reviewing expansion decks for Athena's next phase. My name was synonymous with disruption. My face was on magazine covers. I had money, power, reach. Everything Jack once told me I'd never understand. And yet I hadn't heard anyone call me Sarah in days. Not my team. They called me Ms. Whitmore. Not the press. Not even my son. He stood in the kitchen one morning, backpack slung over one shoulder, cereal in the other hand. "Hey, CEO, Mom," he said, grinning. I smiled back, but it caught in my throat. He said it like a compliment, like it was cool to have a mother who ran empires. But I didn't feel cool. I felt replaced. After he left for school, I sat with my mother on the balcony. She still visited once a month, always bringing pastries I never had time to eat. She sipped her tea, quiet as ever, then asked the question I'd been dodging. "You won," she said, "but are you happy?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She didn't push. She never did. That night, I stayed late at the office, finishing slides for a keynote I wasn't excited about. A new hire on our data team had flagged something strange. Multiple logins from a shared IP address tied to one of our early NeoMind partners, an entity Jack once managed. A few hours later, I received the email. No subject, no greeting, just lines of clean, sharp text. "You know who I am. I'm the new one he's manipulating, but I've read everything you buried in the code. I know what you did to him. I know what he did to you. I'm not writing for help. I'm writing because I want in." No name, just an attachment. Screenshots, call logs, fragments of back-end scripts, all implicating Jack in another scheme, another woman, another cycle. I leaned back in my chair, eyes burning. How many more? How long had he been repeating this pattern? How many lives had he fractured while I rebuilt mine? The younger version of me, the one on that basement mattress, would have stayed silent, would have let this girl learn her lesson the hard way. But that version was gone. This time, I wasn't going to wait for permission. I booked a studio that night. Clean backdrop, neutral lighting, one take, no script. I sat down, looked into the lens, and spoke the words I'd been writing in my mind for years. "My name is Sarah Whitmore. You know me as the CEO of Athena, as the woman who bought NeoMind, as the face of fintech disruption. But before that, I was someone's wife, someone's liability, someone's ghost." I paused. He left me with $600,000 in debt, and I turned that into a billion-dollar company. That story you've heard. But there's more, because Jack Whitmore didn't stop with me. He kept going, and someone else is paying for it now. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't dramatize. I'm not making this video to destroy him. I already did that. I'm making this because the next girl shouldn't have to choose between silence and survival. I uploaded the video at 2:17 a.m. By 7 a.m., it had 1 million views. By noon, every major outlet had picked it up. By nightfall, Jack Whitmore was trending on every platform, for all the wrong reasons. But I didn't feel vindicated. I felt clean. As if the part of me that still whispered, "You let it happen," had finally been silenced. I returned home just after midnight. My son was asleep. The city was quiet. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, still wearing my blazer from the studio, and studied myself. There were lines I didn't remember having, a weight in my gaze that didn't exist before betrayal carved it there. I reached for the light switch, but paused. My reflection stared back, older and unrecognizable, but finally, mine. And I whispered, "Not for the world this time. Not for revenge or applause. This time, I'll save someone else. Not for closure, not for justice, but because no one saved me." Then I turned off the light. The website was simple. No tracking cookies, no flashy graphics, no buzzwords. Just a single landing page with one question. What did they leave you with? Below it, a form. Name optional. Debt amount optional. What mattered was the story. I launched Debt-Proof Women under my real name. No initials, no aliases, no filters. Founded by Sarah Whitmore, sat at the bottom of every page. I wanted it there. I needed it there. Because hiding had never protected me. It had only prolonged the shame. This time, I wasn't building for scale or valuation. I didn't care if TechCrunch noticed or if we trended on Twitter. I built it for the woman sitting alone in her apartment, wondering how a signature turned into a sentence. I built it for the girl with the maxed-out card and the overdrafted checking account and the voicemail full of collection threats. I built it for the version of me that no empire ever tried to rescue. It started small, 10 mentees, then 30. Women across the country zoomed in from shared bedrooms, co-working spaces, back seats of cars. They didn't come for advice. They came for clarity, and I didn't offer inspiration. I gave them tools. This is what a predatory loan clause looks like. This is what emotional manipulation sounds like when it wears a suit. This is how you fight back without picking a fight. They listened. They asked hard questions. They cried sometimes. So did I. And slowly, something shifted. They stopped calling me CEO. They called me Sarah. It was jarring at first. That name had been buried under so many layers of protection, I forgot it was mine. But when I heard it now, it didn't sound like a victim. It sounded like a teacher. One afternoon, I walked into our local mentoring circle, a small rented space inside a community center with peeling walls and terrible coffee, and saw a girl no older than 20, sitting up front with a notebook full of highlighted scribbles. When I asked for her name, she stood and said, "I want to be you." The room fell quiet. She wasn't joking. Her eyes were sharp, her voice steady. "But earlier," she continued, "before it all happened, I want to learn everything now, not after the fire." I smiled, not out of pride, but recognition. "Then I'll teach you," I said, "and hopefully you'll never have to become me." She nodded, and something opened between us. Not reverence, not mentorship, alignment. We were standing at different ends of the same map, both charting towards sovereignty. That night, I walked home slower than usual. The streets weren't threatening anymore. They felt neutral. The same sidewalks that once carried me in shame now held my steps like they belonged. I made tea, turned off my phone, and stood at the balcony as the city lit up beneath me. I thought of Jack. Wherever he was now, stripped of power, maybe still scheming. I didn't check. I didn't care. His chapter ended the day I stopped needing to win. Because what no one tells you is that revenge has a limit, but freedom grows. I remembered a quote I once scrawled on a Post-it note during the darkest year of my life. You don't need revenge. You just need the power to not need it. Back then, it felt like a fairy tale. Now it felt like truth. I watched the skyline blink like a heartbeat. Somewhere out there, another woman was realizing she'd been cornered. Another Sarah, another student, another survivor. And I hoped, no, I knew, she'd find us. I didn't cry, I didn't smile. But for the first time in a decade, my chest didn't feel tight. My name didn't feel like a scar. My silence didn't feel like surrender. And when the wind passed over me, soft and weightless, I closed my eyes and let it carry me. Not back, not forward, but here. Finally, here.